time is 5:04 and call the meeting to order. First thing on our agenda, call to order roll call, people that are here. Bill Moore, Brandon, Amanda O'Connor, RPC, Andrew Quint.
Yes.
You'll be voting for
Chittenden.
Chris Custer,
Yep.
Sam Jackson.
Yep, I'm here.
That's great. Okay. Jose. Here, represent. Hey, Jackie. Marianne.
I'm here.
Sandra.
I'm here.
Excellent. I think that gives us corn and our one of our guests just popped in. Alex Kelly's here. So yeah, we're calling our roll right now. So we've got enough for a quorum. Gonna move on to the approval agenda. Any motions to approve the agenda?
Motion to amend the agenda.
Sure. Well, okay. Well,
If we need to have that degree of formality, I do not have a contract from the RPC to present. And my boss is not going to be happy about that, but it doesn't mean anything bad for the CUD. I will continue to work off our dime. So
okay. No, well, I appreciate that.
I will have a contract soon.
No worries. No worries.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So that we'll remove that from the agenda. But other than that, everything looked good to everybody. Anybody want to add anything on here?
No.
Okay.
No.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Right.
I'll
I
second that.
second that.
Second for Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Doesn't seem to be anybody opposed. Passes. Agenda's approved. Moving on to step number 3. Our agenda item number 3, a presentation from Rizzy. Alex.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all again who I've seen before. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, can I just dive right into it?
I'm gonna make you co-host right now.
Yeah, so I can screen share. Great. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Great to be with you all. Please interrupt me at any time if you have questions. I know, the CUD is in a growth phase, which is great and which is exciting. So wanted to take this time to give everyone just a recap, soup to nuts, of where we've been, where we started, and where we're heading, and leave plenty of time for questions at the end. So, we are kicking off our business planning phase of the Broadband Innovation Grant, working with the Regional Planning Commission and the CUD, but I'm going to start back at the beginning. So just first quickly introduce ourselves. We'll go through a very brief Broadband 101, talk about the state's goal of 100 over 100 service, why they set up communication union districts, and what the big grant process is. We'll do that really quickly. We'll recap the feasibility study phase, which was what the first phase of the big grant. And then we'll spend a lot of good time talking about what's next, because in the business planning phase, we're going to need more participation from everyone. And this is where things really start to take shape. So without any further ado, right, so I'm Alex Kelly. I'm the Senior Broadband Consultant for Rural Innovation Strategies. With me here is my colleague, Hannah, and we are partnered with ValleyNet on this project. ValleyNet, as you likely know, is the operator for the EC Fiber Communication Union District, and kind of established the model that the Communication Union District model that the state is trying to replicate across Vermont. So really quickly, broadband is how we transfer data across the world. The definition is 25 megabits per second down and 3 megabits per second upload for speeds to be technically broadband. There's a range of technologies and, the different speeds, different upload and download speeds. And the legislature has set a goal that everyone in Vermont be connected by 100 over 100 service by 2024. Moving super quickly here, that 100 over 100 goal really means that fiber broadband is the infrastructure they're targeting. And there's a few reasons for this. Fiber offers symmetrical speeds all the way up. So you can have a gigabit over a gigabit service that allows you the best ability to collaborate on large files, do media production, streaming, gaming, data analysis, and at the rate that bandwidth needs, just everyday residential bandwidth needs have been increasing over the past 10 years. Fiber is really the option that provides the best public policy because it's future-proof and you can continually go faster and faster and faster. So unlike a lot of other technologies that will need to be replaced, DSL had to be replaced, different wireless options are no longer fast enough. Fiber is the future-proof one because you can upgrade it without replacing most of the equipment. A few other little things: increases home values, helps apartments fill faster. I think we've seen that in the pandemic, especially where people are fleeing to Vermont and looking for places with good internet. And basically all of this means that it is the cheapest option over the long run, right? It doesn't degrade. You don't need to replace it. The challenge is that it takes higher upfront capital costs, right? Very, very low long-term upkeep costs, but high upfront capital costs. So this brings us to why we're here, right? With those high upfront construction costs come a hesitancy by the internet providers that we all know by name that could really build it out if they wanted to, but they haven't. And this is kind of the market gap that we're trying to fill here. So with rural areas, right, the margins are low. It's easier for entities like Comcast or anyone else to make money elsewhere. And these private entities don't want a lot of construction debt on their books because that looks bad for investors. So that is why the state of Vermont has kind of been promoting communication union districts as a solution, and why they've kind of established these broadband innovation grants to help with that. And what communication union districts can do is alleviate fix the market gap basically by funding and building the infrastructure themselves and taking a 20-year outlook on that debt, while letting a private entity that's experienced provide the actual internet. So as you know, you all are a municipality modeled after EC Fiber, and we've got this broadband innovation grant plan to help you figure out the best way to build and own your infrastructure, and in 99% of the cases, partner with a private entity to actually provide the service. Good so far? Cool.
Yep.
So basically the trajectory that you're on is got a few steps. The first thing we did was a feasibility study, and that really helped us identify what are the paths open to the CUD. There's a lot of ways that you can, that small towns and rural areas have gotten fiber built. We wanted to see what the best ways for you all were. We are now in the business planning phase, and there's kind of three main elements here that we're going to be working on over the next couple months with you. Broadly, we want to know, how do you execute on your desired path that we identified in the feasibility study? We want to make sure you're finding an ISP partner, the private part of that public-private partnership. And then we want to help you through the contractual agreement that you're going to need to enter with that partner. And there's a lot riding on that, and we'll talk about kind of how that forms the foundation of your business plan later on. So, but first I wanted to recap what happened in the feasibility phase and where we landed. In this phase, we built models based on the data in your region to understand a few things. One, is the network technically feasible in your region? Spoiler alert, it is. That's not a problem. Two, are there enough households passed to reach a final viable size of the network? And there are a few different thresholds here. And then three, can you maintain healthy financials as you build the network? Building these networks is a very capital intense project. EC Fiber has built out their 22 towns over the past 12 years and spent tens of millions of dollars, right? So we want to find the optimal way for you all to build out faster than it took them, but also make sure we're paying attention to things like your cash flow, this EBITDA ratio, which you need to be 1.25 or better in order to access revenue bonds. And we want to make sure we're looking at your different financial benchmarks like your IRR as compared to the cost of capital. So the model has a range of inputs and outputs, and I won't go through these one by one, but we looked at things like population density, road miles, where there's existing fiber or sorry, cable in your area, what funding sources you have available to you or are likely to have available to you. And then we incorporated a lot of historical data from EC Fiber's network, which informs things like how many customers or what percentage of customers you pass likely sign up for the service in different contexts. So the output of all of this work, right, are kind of things that allow us to look at projected revenues and costs. So how many miles of fiber are you going to build in places that already have cable, because that's more expensive, versus places without cable? How many premises are you going to pass year over year? How many customers can you assume? And that translates into revenue and other items. So I'm happy to go into this in more detail. There's also more detail in the feasibility report itself. A lot of people are curious about kind of some of the hard costs and assumptions in the model, and so I'll go through a few here. I mentioned that it's a little more expensive to build new broadband infrastructure in places that already have cable or multiple attachments on the utility poles. And this is current pandemic data in a time where construction is in high demand, this type of construction, and it's costing about $28,000 a mile in uncabled areas and $38,000 a mile in cabled areas. The take rates, which are also, you can also call penetration rates. There's a chart on the right kind of detailing those in those two circumstances. And though there is some variation based on things like average income of the town, far and away the biggest indicator of how many customers you're going to have is how long the network has been available. So if you build a mile or say 100 miles of fiber over a place that already has Comcast, in year one, you can expect 11% of the premises you pass to become subscribers, which increases, as the chart indicates. And that is almost double or just about double in places where there's no good cable competitor. So we're assuming an average revenue per user of about $105 a month. Now that's not the basic subscription cost. That's averaging all the people who are likely to buy the higher tiers, business revenue, and the percentage of people that we think will buy an add-on of phone service. And again, this comes from 12 years of historical EC Fiber data. So we're quite sure that this is about what you're going to be able to see. And it's in fact a little bit less, we benchmarked it a little bit less than what EC Fiber says, just to build in some cushion. There's a few other kind of quirks of it, which is that phone subscriptions are declining as people forego their landlines. So we built that into the model, as well as some other kind of nuances that we've observed over the past 12 years of EC Fiber data. And so these are just a few of them, but it's a robust model, to say the least. And so this is kind of what we found. As I mentioned, the network is technically feasible, and the region itself has enough scale, as in total potential customers, to land at a final viable size that makes sense and is sustainable. There are some scenarios that are harder paths than others to maintain those healthy financials, though. And that's a result of increased construction costs. Materials costs have also gone up recently due to factory closures due to COVID and increased demand. And just your particular distribution and ratio of served and unserved premises is challenging in some scenarios. And there's also, as you know, investments being made or supposedly being made by entities like Consolidated Communications, which are further complicating the outlook. But as we mentioned before, we think there are two great viable paths for you, and one in particular will be the most efficient and expedient. So what are those paths, right? In order to kind of optimize your growth and your margins, you can potentially coordinate with a neighboring CUD to pick the same partner and therefore spread the fixed costs over more customers and have a little bit more optimized of a build sequence with more with a different kind of set of areas you can build in. That's one option. And I know you've been in close communication with Bennington CUD so that you're understanding where they're going and they're understanding where you're going, because it may make sense regardless of what happens to try to coordinate to pick the same operator and again spread costs over more customers. But option number two, which I think is it would perhaps be the fastest and most efficient option, is to partner with an ISP, an internet service provider that has existing assets and operations in the area. If you were, and that basically results in a whole host of savings, because if they already have, leadership, if they've got a call center, if they know the area, if they've got trucks, that saves a lot of money, as opposed to finding an operator to come to an area and set up new operations. The other thing that does is it alleviates some of the concerns about scale, and especially scale in the early years. And this is a little bit hard to describe, but the CUD strategy has to be some form of building fast to get a lot of customers, and then constraining a little bit to wait until your cash flow becomes positive, and then using that to start building faster again. That's kind of that's kind of the strategy that you would have to take to comply with what the state wants to see, which is being cash flow positive in year 3, and what you would need to access revenue bonds. But with a partner that already has a customer base in the area, they're not going to be as concerned about that rapid growth in the beginning. Therefore, you can actually greatly improve your financials in the first 5 to 6 years, especially by going with a partner that won't have those concerns about reaching a certain number of customers right away. And the other thing is that you might actually have better or different options for fundraising, especially knowing what we know about what the Vermont EDA wants to see from an application for the VITA loan program. So again, I mean, I would encourage you to check out the feasibility study, which I think goes into more detail, and I'm happy to answer questions, but these are the two options that we found that we think are most viable for you. So that brings us to kind of where we are today, which is, as you know, the CUD has been talking to Waitsfield Champlain Valley Telecom as a potential partner. And they've also been talking to Consolidated Communications as a partner. And each of those are viable partners that fit the conditions that we've described as the best and most efficient path. And you're going to have to do some deliberation to really understand what the best route is. And I don't know that it's, and there are kind of nuances and conditions on both of those. And we can maybe get into that more today if the chair and everyone feels like we want to start talking about that. But at the same time, you know, you've got this memorandum of understanding with Southern Vermont to keep in close coordination there. So all I would say is that it's good to keep different options open for as long as you can, because we're in a dynamic environment and things are changing quite quickly. The state is looking at legislation to help CUDs, which could change the picture. There's the 10-year telecom plan that's being put together, and funding sources at the federal level that will be announced as a result of stimulus money. But it's also important to keep these options open because they do provide a little bit of leverage for you in negotiating your partnership agreements. So, really what we need to do, the project team, is to help you understand the implications of each path and then help you decide which one to pursue for the business plan, which brings me to my next slide. So as I mentioned, kind of one of the foundational elements of the business plan is going to be this agreement that you're going to need to come to with someone to operate your network. And there's a lot that is going to go into this agreement. Clearly, one of the important things is the financial arrangement, right? If you build fiber and they lease it from you, how are they going to do that? Are they going to lease it just by mile? Are they going to lease it, pay you for each customer that they sign up, or that can be signed up? Is there some blend of that, and at what rate? And also part of this agreement could be things like, what are you going to charge customers? What are the service tiers? So there's a whole host of kind of financial considerations that go into this. And we're going to need to find out in our deliberations with private partners if your need to cover your debt service and their required profit margin presents a viable product to your customers, right? It may be that your debt service is X amount, right? You can't change that. And the partner's profit expectations are a certain amount, and you decide, you know what, it's going to end up costing our customers too much. And so you have to go to a different option. The other elements of the partnership agreement, right, are going to be the kind of codification of your values. And, you want to build to the last mile. Everyone doesn't, nobody wants data caps. Everyone wants privacy and net neutrality, local customer service. So part of these deliberations are going to be, how much of this can you get a commitment for? If you have to compromise, what are you willing to compromise on? And, what is a no-go? And if you're not able to get it, then you walk away. And then I think there's other kind of a little bit more logistical things that'll go into the contract. These are just a few examples, but who owns the drops, which are the pieces of fiber that go from the telephone pole to someone's house, right? If you build the fiber and then someone signs up, then somebody needs to go and build that drop. There could be a difference in who owns that, who does the maintenance and on different components. What's the length of the agreement? There's a whole host of other things that are going to go into this partnership agreement. And this is a really important thing. And it will involve, modeling on our part to make sure that it's an agreement that works for you and that everyone's happy with. And again, it's all about, understanding what your hard costs are, what your values are, and what financial arrangement with a private operator is going to need to look like to make everyone happy. So I just want to also preview some of the other elements that are going to be included in this business plan. Refined cost projections, right? As things evolve and as construction prices continue to fluctuate, or different debt vehicles become available to you, these projections are always changing. We may refine the build sequence based on who your partner is or other factors, competitive behavior, for example. We'll suggest hub locations, right? Pretty much each town is going to need to have a piece of equipment about the size of a refrigerator, and we'll help you figure out where those could go. We'll help you understand what vendors you're going to need to do additional work. And this is a little bit contingent on who your partner is. You may have a partner who wants to manage the construction because they want to see how the network's built, or they want it built to their specifications, or you may have a partner who does not want to manage the construction. And so you will need to hire someone to do that. We'll help you through the steps you need to take to issue requests for proposals to select the vendors you need. We'll help you understand the ongoing CUD staffing needs. And then again, this will depend on some of the pieces of the agreement, right? If you're responsible for a certain amount of maintenance, do you hire someone for that? Do you contract for that? There's ongoing staffing needs that will kind of come out through this process. Marketing strategies, sequence of work needed to execute. And this is only a partial list. It's going to be a robust document that should provide a pathway towards building out your network. So let me pause there. This is a whole lot of information, and I know I talk kind of quickly. So should we open it up for questions? The next slide I have is just kind of outlining our work ahead, right? I might as well do this and then we can do questions. So, right, we're going to keep helping you explore partnerships at a high level and the implications of those partnerships. Once you feel like you have an idea of the right partner to pursue, we'll help you start to do those negotiations to make sure that it's viable and do the modeling required to understand if your partner's profit expectations can coexist with your debt service needs and result in a reasonable cost to your customers. And the good thing is that you have options if, for whatever reason, the first agreement you pursue does not end up working. So you will need some legal support as you do this public-private partnership negotiation. And once that's in place, we will build the business plan around the exact costs and an arrangement that you set up through this agreement. I'll stop there. How's everyone feeling? Overwhelmed?
Sure, as always.
Yeah.
As always. I don't know if anybody else has any specific questions for Alex at this time.
Yeah, hi, it's Jose Lux here from Harvard. And so I just have and I'm sorry, I'm a completely lay person in this arena, but what I wanted to ask is, are there any other stakeholders that have an interest here? For example, electrical companies wanting to directly measure our electricity consumption without anybody having to come by and look at our meters, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That could benefit from this as well. Actually, I remember a few years ago, I first heard about fiber being installed in Vermont in that context.
Yeah.
Eliminating the need for for the electrical company to have to come and check our meters.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And so, your entire area is covered by Green Mountain Power, and they already have kind of remote viewing of meters. And unfortunately, they did it so long ago, they didn't build in enough capacity to actually run a telecommunications network on it. That being said, off and on, they have discussed possible ways to align interest with CUDs, and it fits into a few buckets. Because at the end of the day, they know that they benefit if all of their customers have internet in their own right? More power usage, more people moving to the area. So interests are definitely aligned. One thing that they've done is provided very detailed data about their utility pole locations to the state and to us, which is really helpful for planning. And it is completely unique in the country, basically. The data that Vermont has both on utility poles and where there's served and unserved locations is fantastic. And they've updated that data to reflect certain things we need to know, like who's already on the poles and what locations. I know internally they've talked about various ways to further incentivize these fiber projects, and whether that's putting a bounty on houses that get served or things like that. And they have not landed on a place where they feel like they really want to apply their their weight. That being said, I think things are going to shape up this year and clarify a little bit. As I mentioned, there's a 10-year telecom plan being developed. And I think when they were thinking about how to help, this was before the CUDs were quite mature enough to kind of know what they needed. But it's getting to the point where, you know, the CUDs are all going to need things from Green Mountain Power. They're going to need to do ask for what's called make ready work, which is where you get the utility owner to go out to each pole and prepare it for a new attachment. That costs a lot of money. At the same time, Green Mountain Power has an interest in you succeeding. So I think there are agreements to be worked out, and it might have to happen at the state level to really codify it. But I would expect there to be more discussion about that this coming year, and kind of alignment of forces and interest.
Alex, are you, and I'm not well versed in it at all, but are you up to date on the PUC request from GMP to approve a broadband deployment program as a strategic opportunity?
Maybe. How recent are you talking?
It was a petition filed January 29th, so it's ongoing.
I'll have to take a look at it.
Okay, no, I was just curious. I haven't read all the documents yet.
Yeah, so can you describe it in a little bit more detail?
Unfortunately, the caption is petition of Green Mountain Power for approval of a broadband deployment program as a strategic opportunity pursuant to
Cool.
30 VSA and GMP's multi-year regulation plan. So my understanding is they're seeking PUC approval to support the deployment of broadband. But I haven't gone through all the pre-filed testimony exhibits and affidavits yet because I need more hours in the day. But that's something that came live end of January. So
I'm happy to look through that closely, and I mean, I need to do that.
I can read it. It was just for the sake of this conversation. I couldn't help at all, except I knew this thing, and maybe you knew about the thing too. So
well, no, that's positive. It means they're continuing to think about helping. I know they historically have been concerned about cross subsidy, using electric ratepayer subsidy to fund broadband, which not all of their constituents will be able to take advantage of. But it's great to know that there's still movement or recent movement on that front. So I'm putting it on my list.
I put the link in the chat to the PUC page.
Great.
The information on it. Yeah, I started looking through it on my phone, and it was completely. I'd recommend doing it from a PC. Started doing it on my phone. I was like, "This is not. I can't navigate this."
I have just a quick question. Consolidated seems to be gearing up to lay fiber everywhere, including our town, very soon. Is this because they know that we're moving on it and they're just trying to grab whatever they can, or like what's their reasoning to partner with us? Why don't they just do it themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to give you a little bit longer answer than you probably want, but I think so. Way back when the state got serious about communication union district models and they funded all these plans, there was no indication that Consolidated was going to make any new investments in anything. The state created a very credible threat of competition, and Consolidated not only is, won a lot of federal subsidy to build out in Vermont, but has committed $140 million of private investment to Vermont. I think that's as painful as it is for complicating CUD's paths, it's a bit of a win for the state if that all comes to pass, because they've incentivized a whole bunch of private investment. From your perspective, however, it does seem like they're picking locations strategically to make it harder for the CUDs to build their own networks. And that's something that the state is aware of. And if they want you to have a lot of options, they're going to need to put a lot more weight behind your networks. If they're okay with you having very few options based on, again, increased construction costs, you know, then they may not. In your instance, because you have another provider that's willing to talk about being a partner and in the area and doesn't need to worry about, you know, buying trucks and getting customers really fast, you actually still have multiple options, which is great. That's not necessarily the case for other groups. But so suffice it to say, CCI is being very intentional with what they're doing. They understand the threat. I mean, they see that EC Fiber has done nothing but take customers away from them for 11 years. And this is their reaction to that. So the other thing that I would say is that I think in their mind, they are the only logical choice for a lot of CUDs to partner with. And that's the position they want themselves to be in. And part of that is due to the fact that if you were to partner with them, your construction costs would be significantly cheaper because they already basically own space on all the telephone poles. And it would save you anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000 a mile potentially to build in the space on the telephone pole that they already own. And so they feel like not only are they kind of boxing everyone else out geographically, but because they would be so much cheaper to partner with, they feel like they are the best option. You may end up deciding that they are the best option. You're going to have that deliberation. But it's important to know that you do have options and that you have multiple credible options. And so that's something you can take with you, and you know you can walk away, you know you have a little bit of bargaining leverage. That's the kind of position you're in. It may be the case that the state says, you know what, we want to make sure the CUDs have a lot of bargaining power and a lot of options, and they may kind of implement systems to help with that. We're not quite sure yet because everything is happening in real time. But you know, I think I know you've met with Consolidated, and frankly, they are a real option, and there are real benefits to partnering with them. And I think maybe it's worth talking about that a little bit. I mean, is this being recorded by any chance?
Yes,
Unrelated
yes,
question.
yes. It is
Cool.
it is being recorded.
Cool. So I will leave it up to you how much you want to talk about deliberations that involve your own strategy, because that might be protected, and we don't need to do that now.
I would encourage anybody that's interested in serving on the executive committee, which we have yet to meet, but we're getting really close to actually having enough to meet. Those are the kinds of decisions that we're really going to be drilling down on during those meetings. So I implore.
Right. The way that we've seen it work in other CUDs is the executive committee does the hard work of those deliberations, brings a proposal to the rest of the CUD to vote on, and explains how they came to their decision. But the kind of back and forth deliberations happen in executive committee for the sake of your own, strategy, privacy,
sanity.
Yeah.
Being honest. Does anybody else have any other questions for Alex? Are we allowed to keep these tiles, the PowerPoint presentation? Can you send it?
Yeah.
We can post
I sent it to you. Feel free to send it out.
Okay.
We're here to shepherd you through this process. I know it is daunting. This is a lot of information, and some of the CUD towns are new to this. So let me know when you want me to come back and answer questions, attend your executive committee meetings, all of that. just let me know. And we've got some things, as you know, moving along that will allow us to start to model what partnerships could look like. But in the interim, as that work goes on, just let me know if you have things you need or places you want me to be.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Hannah, for coming down.
Thank you both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you sure nobody has any more questions?
It's very overwhelming. You're like,
Yeah.
you have you got a great way of speaking, but it's a lot to process, especially, I mean, like, again, we're all, we talked about it many times, drinking from the fire hose, with this, and it's still just, I mean, to even hear it in this sort of process, why I wanted to be able to have those tiles to share, slides to share with folks, and then we maybe have some more discussions, in our future meetings. Certainly our executive committee will be doing a lot of the heavy lifting about making decisions about these partnerships.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Is there any reason for us to hang on for the rest of the meeting?
I don't think so. Unless you want to be bored. No. No.
No, we like you guys. We like hanging out. I mean, look at what's going on with the sunglasses over there on Amanda's screen.
Well, thank you very much. So we're going to move on to agenda item number 4. The possibility of us pursuing non-disclosure agreements with a couple different entities. We've got consider. Amanda, do you want to speak a little more to that about Consolidated and Waitsfield?
Apparently Miriam does too. Yes, so we did receive a draft NDA from CCI. I sent that to our lawyer for review, and for good reason. He sent back some really worthy feedback, and I'm happy to send this to you all if you have interest to review that. So I've sent that draft back to CCI to make sure that that is an NDA that they are equally comfortable with. The biggest emphasis being that we are subject to open meeting law. So we can't just say we will not discuss that we've signed an NDA, because that itself has to be public, and we can't go into executive session to make those kinds of decisions. So we'll work through that process. And as soon as we have an agreed upon NDA, it'll go, I'm guessing, as Alex said, to the executive committee for an agreement, and I think Bill signs. That said, we've also today, I think, or yesterday, received a draft NDA from the Waitsfield Champlain Valley Telecom. And that's the other predominant possibility that Alex, I think, was alluding to. We've had very brief intro calls with these two entities, both CCI and Waitsfield, just to see, are you even interested in working with us? To have more in-depth conversations, we have to sign those NDAs. So having received the lawyer's feedback, I need to review, because the lawyer's kind of pricey. He's really good, a little pricey, but I need to review the NDA I just received in comparison to his feedback to make sure it checks all the boxes that he noted. And then once that looks good and it's agreed upon with Waitsfield, I'll bring it before you. And I'm not withholding any of this. Please feel free to email anytime and ask what's the status, where the draft documents, any of that. I just figured you'd be okay not reviewing every single draft. So that's the status, is that they are ongoing. Hopefully we'll have something soon. Waitsfield was a good, do we want to go into this, Bill, or is this another line item?
So I think we could probably go. No, I think we should go into it.
Okay. It was a good intro call. Nice guys. They seem to have interest, and they even maybe alluded to being possible open to working with us, even if we did not sign an MOU with Maple Broadband, so Addison County. Addison County also needs to make their own decision, and it would be better if they did. It'd be a better business case for Waitsfield, but they still sounded interested, even if that weren't the case. But again, no real details. We have to sign an NDA if we want more information. CCI was also a very brief phone call, and that's where we heard that they'll be building out portions of 9 town centers in the Rutland region. We don't know when, although I did hear from Terry Williams in Poultney today that he's seen work happening on poles. So they're already working in some municipalities. It sounds like Marianne, there's action happening in West Rutland. So they are not obligated to, I guess, let the public know when they do that work, but they are working, they've started work in some areas. We just don't know what their coverage will be. And if you look at our mission overall, we want people to be connected, the end. We want people to have better connectivity. And this technically is bringing that closer. It does hurt the business case a little bit, as Alex said. But if it comes down to the CUD being the reason all those hubs are connected and there is complete coverage, then so be it. As long as there's private money going in and it's debt we don't have to take on. So if we can continue to think of this as, regardless of who's doing it, it's work happening. And CCI does have a pretty a competitive fiber package for people to subscribe to. So it's really not a bad thing. We have options though, so we just need to move forward knowing that and tread carefully and wisely. I guess the only other potential like contractor-esque item is that we were notified that there was work happening from Hub 66 down in Rupert. We did meet with them a few months ago, if some of you recall. There were some questionable items in terms of their work history. So at that time, we decided not to pursue that. If you would, that company, if you want any more information on that, feel free to reach out. Anyways, that's the most recent news that I can think of in terms of contractors.
Thank you, Amanda. Any questions from anybody about that? Yeah, it's been amazing. You know, Amanda's been doing the lion's share of all this work, and actually right now, at least for the time being, for free, which we really appreciate. Until we get the contract solidified with Rutland Regional Planning Commission, we want to thank Ed Bowe and make sure that you're encouraging your fellow townspeople to vote for any sort of, you know, to either join your planning commission or support your planning commission if they're on your ballots at all for funding, because they're important, and Amanda is reason why. Looking at our agenda, we're going to be adding something at the end in new business. It's something that I neglected to put on the agenda that I sent out late to you guys. I'm going to it's for us to sign or to approve signing a memorandum of understanding with Southern Vermont, and we have somebody here from Southern Vermont, actually, Jeff Such. Hello, Jeff. We'll be hitting you up at the end of this meeting, okay? If you hear me, don't ask me on mute. But moving on to, we're on the agenda, new member approval. We don't have any new members to approve. We haven't gotten any new members. This sort of, you know.
I heard Poultney approved it. I'm still waiting on their documents, their signed resolution, so we can vote on that once we receive that.
CUD Accelerator Program updates, number 6. And if you were here at the beginning of the meeting, the gold star goes to Chris, who's attended all of the CUD Accelerator sessions. And if you're interested in checking those out, I've been sharing those links periodically. They're sent to me by Evan Carlson. And if time becomes an issue for you, I would certainly, you know, recommend at least doing it on 1.5 speed. It makes it go by a little more quickly, and they're available to see. I mean, some of them are really cool. Some of them might be redundant for you. Even the first one, I find them all to be really incredibly informative. And if you guys need more copies of those links, let me know. I can forward them out to you again. Chris, is there anything you wanted to add about that?
No, it is good, and you know, it's well organized. Last week or this week, it was really interesting because we got to hear from different states like Tennessee and Minnesota and places like that. You know, so it was kind of interesting hearing actually from, you know, one of the state legislators. I think that was Minnesota, and then we had like a CEO of a telecom that was in Tennessee, but. Vermont's not alone. We also had Maine. There was a person from Maine that was on the call. But, you know, they shared a lot of experience that they went through. You know, they're obviously way much further down the road than we are. So But it was really good. It was interesting. A lot of it again had to do with the financial aspects and stuff, which, whoo, man, I'm not an accountant, so there's a lot of lingo in there that that they give out a glossary of terms and stuff in the beginning, to try to help you keep up with that. But thank God we do have people here like Amanda and the lawyers and stuff, and and Alec that presentation tonight, I'm not lying to you guys, but I actually felt pretty good about that presentation. A lot of it made sense to me, and I think part of that is because I've been going through the other stuff, so it's starting to gel with me. Because when I first started in this, I had absolutely no idea why do you even want me involved in this, or what a CUD was, but it's really interesting. I'll stop, but yeah.
Well, we appreciate you sticking it out. And again, we're really, so don't let anybody, I mean, like, this is, I thought a CUD was something the cows chew, right? That was before this all started. So and we're all learning as we're going along. So there's no such thing as a bad question for anybody. So, don't feel free to send emails anytime asking for questions and clarifications. We can connect people with the resources so we can figure it out together. Moving on to legislative updates. I mean, the legislature is added. There's been a ton of testimony. I know that Amanda has testified. VCUDA has testified a bunch of different times. There's a lot going on. Things are starting to settle. Dust is starting to settle a little bit, and I guess we'll know more, like the crossover, right, Amanda? The crossover.
Yeah, we'll wait to see what happens with the Senate of, I think it's the Finance Committee, and how they decide to move forward with the remaining CARES Act funds. And the additional funds. They are wrapping up with that. I think they're putting most of the emphasis on funds for line extension programs. So when that happens, that would be great, because I know that could really benefit some areas. It does not sound like we'll be able to continue with the CARES Act that we received because we had funds left over. So we'll see. The House Energy and Technology Committee just submitted their final version of bill or draft bill 210185. But it is the what are they calling it? It's a bill to fund broadband deployment, support communication union districts, as well as the creation of the Vermont Community Broadband Authority. We'll see how that goes. Just as an FYI, the RRPC only submitted comments in support of supporting CUDs, but we were not, we're hesitant and concerned about the creation of a new authority, because it's a new entity and a new bureaucracy to figure out how to work through in the contracts. And that's a lot of work. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot. Also, just noting that Department of Public Service supports us and has supported us through grants with 16 plus people. And I don't know, we don't know. It's a new factor. So we're a little concerned about that, especially the amount of time it takes to stand up a new entity. And if federal money happens and the new entity is not yet stood up, we might be in the same position a year from now. So we'll see what happens. But a lot of good could also come from it too. And maybe we're just scared of new. So who knows? But it's a lot of wait and see. And I can send summaries if anyone is interested.
Thank you, Amanda. And again, thanks for your hard, free work that you've been doing. We appreciate it. Moving on, as we're getting closer. Grant updates, that was kind of wrapped into the legislative update.
There's been some Northern Borders talk and potential for some grants, but I think we're waiting both on the legislature to make up their minds. But as soon as we have a fleshed out business plan, then we can pursue more funds. And that depends on us having more information on contractors. So I guess all that to say, it's hedging on us finalizing the NDAs to get more information. Because we cannot finish the business plan until we have the contractor identified. Sorry, I had to clarify that.
Fantastic. And then the contract, we move that agenda item number 12, the CUDA update. I mean, that's essentially what we've been talking about with it. It's all been around the legislative support and pushing and prodding of senators and state reps and testimony, and it's been fantastic. And there's been a lot of mostly really good work being done by the CUDs through the CUDA and through the individual CUDs as well. So we're working hard. But again, it's, you know, we'll know a lot more once the legislation is signed. I mean, then we know, I mean, because things can change right up to the last minute. I mean, last year we went through this, you know, my experience with REC, you know, I thought they'd made some, or with Act 250, thought they made some really big changes to Act 250, and right up until 3 days before, it was looking great, and then it got pulled out. So till the ink dries on the ink dries, we're not going to bet on anything. So looking at new member recruitment, we're trying to push into filling out the rest of our county. I know that Amanda met with Rutland City.
Yeah, there was a presentation given to the aldermen. Lots of excitement, but they also have due process to follow there. And that's not somewhere we would have expected. As Alex alluded to, it can be more expensive to work out in areas that are highly cabled, and Rutland City is highly cabled. But there's very few people that have over 100 there. Most of it's 25.3, which would be great. I know some of you would absolutely love 25.3, but with the continuing statewide goal of getting a minimum 100 it doesn't necessarily need to be symmetrical, but higher speed internet than that. There's discussion about them joining, so we'll see. We do really need Wells to join, so working on communicating with them. If anyone has any good friends on the Wells side, that will help us in terms of getting the western border built out, as we'll touch on briefly with our hopeful MOU with Southern Vermont CUD. So that's all I have.
Segue, yeah, that, you know, yeah, getting our southern presence strong so we can work better as partners with Southern Vermont CUD. And Jeff is here. They voted. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
There we go. No mute. Hey guys.
So you guys agreed as a board to sign an MOU with us, correct?
Correct.
Excellent. So you're just looking for some reciprocity on our end.
Yeah, if you guys are so inclined.
Excellent. And
We are. I think we are.
yeah, and again, you know, as your chair, I strongly encourage us to do this. This is not, you know, marrying us, but it's, you know, I guess agreeing to go out, I guess, go on a couple of dates and see where it goes, you know, share some information with each other, you know, and just, you know, be willing to work, you know, working toward the same goal of providing that coverage, and especially specific to our southern counties. So
Can I just ask, what is Southern Vermont consist of? What counties?
So Southern Vermont is now just added its 14th town. We're primarily Bennington County.
Okay.
There's some overlap either way with Wyndham, with Deerfield Valley CUD, but we're pretty much Bennington County. And speaking to towns along, especially right up against the New York border, Paulette being the first, just the way that the infrastructure is laid out, those communities may very well more likely be served from a hub in Dorset than, you know, than up north where you all were. So this is kind of the premise behind this kind of cooperation, is that unfortunately infrastructure lines don't really follow our political boundaries. So if we're going to do this right, and we're going to serve everyone in our mutual communities, we kind of have to share basic information and plans.
I'll make the motion that we sign the MOU with the Southern Vermont CUD.
I second that motion.
any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We'll get that signed and off here. Hey, we're partners.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Looking forward to it.
We're looking forward to working. Yeah.
Thanks.
So looking at moving on to our next agenda item, setting our next meeting. this moves on to an email. Again, I apologize profusely for not sending out more reminders and or having that posted timely for this meeting. We did get a quorum, thankfully. I'd like to set a more regular meeting date if we could. I propose, I mean, it seems like we're kind of settling on this third or fourth Wednesday of the month. Is there any objection to setting it as the third Monday of the month? I'm sorry, third Wednesday of the month. I'm third Wednesday of the month.
Fine
Yeah,
with me.
Like that.
Fine with me.
All right, so the third Wednesday, it's gonna be the same. Let's see, I'm sorry, did I move it? I moved it up. There we go here. Back here. I think we avoided this week we avoided the vacation week. It'll be the 17th of next month. Does that work for everybody? March 17th?
Yeah, that should work.
All right.
Sounds good.
Are you bringing the green beer, Bill?
Bring you some beer? No problem.
St. Patty's Day.
Oh, that's
All
right.
right.
That is day.
Oh, well, is anybody going to a bar? You guys can get home, right? We're at that point. You guys are out. I'm reporting you off now. So yeah, does anybody have a problem with St. Patty's Day? We can move it to the 24th and go fourth Wednesday if you guys want.
No, I'm good with it.
Okay.
No, St. Patty's is fine.
All right. Maybe I'll is it Instacart you guys some beer or something like that. That's fantastic. All right. Well, looking at the time and the agenda. Any more other business? We set the next meeting. Anybody want to make that a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn, Chris Custer.
I'll second it.
Non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. It's 6:05. Thank you everybody for coming out. I'll